Hi everyone, I'm going to talk to you today about how conflict coaching can help deal with inappropriate behaviour in the workplace. I have used this very recently with 3 people that had engaged in behaviour that was not considered appropriate in the workplace. The behaviour was in one instance really out of line, and in another instance was deemed so inappropriate that this person was suspended from employment for a period of time, but as a result of the coaching with me has now been allowed to return to work. And so I want to give you an understanding about what conflict coaching is and why it is so effective. So conflict coaching is a process that was developed by a woman in Canada called Cindy Noble. And it's a brilliant process and very simple but incredibly effective, and I trained in this a couple of years ago, and it's a game changer by no stretch of the imagination. So what it does is that when we do conflict coaching is we take a conflict situation and we think about it in terms of all of the emotion and energy that goes with the feelings associated with that conflict. And then basically we break down all the elements. And so we start to intellectualize something which is highly emotive. So when we first feel the conflict, you usually feel it in your body somewhere. So for me, I often feel a heat in my back. My brain can sort of start to feel big, and I can sometimes get ringing in my ears. There can be a whole range of different things that can happen depending on how affected I am by a conflict situation. And the same happens for other people. It's just we may experience it in slightly different ways. But usually it is such an emotive experience that we become overwhelmed and we react to the conflict in an emotionally inappropriate state. So some people are much better at managing conflict and their emotions than others, but at times we may be triggered to behave in a manner which is just not okay. And when that happens, we can actually do something about it. So when I work with people, we spend a lot of time just ruminating on a problem and having a really deep understanding about what's happening for us in that moment. And then we start to break it all down and we start identifying what are our values in that moment, what do we need in that moment, how do we want to be perceived in that moment. And once we've done that and we've got a really clear understanding about that and what triggered the conflict to happen in the first place and what the consequences are and all of those bits and pieces, then eventually we step into the shoes of the other person that we're in conflict with. And we start trying to have an understanding about what was going on for them in that moment too. So it's not something which is stressful or difficult, but it does take a bit of time, and it does take some trust to go there and have that conversation with me. But what I've found is that when I work with people who are in high conflict situations, and usually because they're so conflicted, they're behaving really inappropriately, that we can then unpack that. And when you have an intellectual understanding about why you behave in a certain way, it diffuses some of that emotion, and then it's a lot easier to deal with it, and it's a lot easier to work out the next steps and how to correct or at least address the situation that arose in the past, and to practice new behaviours about how you're going to deal with similar situations going forward. So it is something that I have used. It is incredibly powerful. It works. And inappropriate behaviour is just information that the person that you're dealing with doesn't know how to deal with the emotions in that moment. It doesn't mean they're a bad person. It just means that in that moment when they're triggered, they go to a default position, which means that they engage in some behaviour that they have learnt from the past, that they use, that just comes out in that moment. So it's about unpacking that, and learning some new ways to deal with conflict. So if you have any people in your workplace who you have concerns about and you would really like to be able to help them to be better able to deal with conflict in the workplace because you value them, but at times they behave in a manner which is stressful for you and for other people, please feel free to refer them to me, and I can see if I can help them. They've got to want to help themselves, but often by the time they get to see me, they do want to change that behaviour because they recognise that there's a real benefit in it. There you go. Well, it's Monday. Have a great day. I've just done my first Spotfire session in the Thrive Tribe. If you're interested in more detailed responses and problem solving of issues that might happen in your workplace, please join my Thrive Tribe because we're going to explore all of those issues in a lot more depth there. All right. Have a good week. Cheers. Bye.